I get frustrated sometimes that we get sucked into other people's creations. Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak came up with this great thing. That's their creation. But if we're always on that all the time, we're not creating anything. And so that's another thing. As a parent, we have to have this overview of giving our children some time to be bored and not be constantly entertained, so they actually start to think for themselves.
Hello and welcome to the Sunshine Parenting Podcast, where each week we talk about ideas for raising kids who become thriving adults. I'm your host, Audrey Monkey. Here on the podcast, I share my experiences raising 5 kids who currently range in age from 16 to 26 and working with thousands more as a summer camp director over the past 3 decades. I'm the author of Happy Campers, and I frequently do workshops with parents, teachers, and summer camp professionals about social skills, connection, and happiness, topics I researched extensively for my master's in psychology. If you want tools for raising kind, optimistic, self-reliant kids who become thriving adults, you've come to the right place. Hey, Sunshine Parenting listeners, and welcome to episode 144, which is first being released on Friday, June 19th, 2020. I think this week's interview will inspire you to try my suggestion for this week's one simple thing, which is, and I know it's going to sound scary during these times, to unplug just a little bit. If you and your family have been glued to your devices for the past several months, you're not alone. Just about all of us have had to be on our devices a lot because of work and school and just staying connected with family and friends. But it's really important for our well-being to have some screen-free time every day and every week. So here are a couple of simple starting points. One is, if you don't already do this, put all your phones and devices to bed each night. Figure out a time, plug them all in, put a little blankie over them, say goodnight, and leave them there wherever they are, not in your bedroom, until the next morning. I've been practicing spending my first hour in some quiet time of Bible reading and journaling and prayer and not touching my phone for that first hour. So my phone goes to bed in the evening, usually between 8 and 9, and I do some reading and different things. And then in the morning, I don't wake it up again until around 7:30 or 8. I would love to hear if you try this one simple thing in your family and just see if it makes a difference in your well-being and how you're feeling. Let me know. If you're a longtime listener to the Sunshine Parenting Podcast, then you may remember today's guest. Jenifer Joy Madden was with me back in episode 30, talking about her book, How to Be a Durable Human, Revive and Thrive in the Digital Age Through the Power of Self-Design. Jenifer is a health and environmental journalist who is also a digital broadcaster and adjunct professor for Syracuse University in their DC program. Madden is a child advocate who has volunteered her time to establish new walking and biking trails throughout Northern Virginia. She's also the parent of 3 durable adults. Jenifer is very involved with the Digital Wellness Collective, which is a global trade association for digital wellness experts and organizations. Jenifer's organization, which is called The Durable Human, explores the intersection of humanity and the digital world with a focus on how to live in harmony with technology. She's based in Washington, D.C. For this episode, I'm bringing you the webinar she invited me to participate in with her for Digital Wellness Day, which was hosted by the Digital Wellness Collective. Enjoy our chat. Well, hello, Jenifer. Welcome back to Sunshine Parenting. I'm so excited to be with you again today.
Same here. I'm so glad to be back.
Yeah, it's so, your message is incredibly important right now. I think, well, it's always important, but I think now more than ever, it's something that we're all struggling with a bit, right?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. It's very challenging these days, more than ever. And
I would love for you to just share with my listeners, because it was something new to me. Tell us about Digital Wellness Day. What is it? What is it all about?
Digital Wellness Day is meant to have us become more self-aware and actually embracing of and celebrating our lives online and being with our devices. And of course, lately, they've become so integral in our lives that we really appreciate them in terms of how they connect us with other people when we're alone, and allow us to buy things, and kids to connect with their friends. And it's just been incredible what has happened to all of us. And so that's the really excellent part for us to take stock of. But we also have the other side of being careful that we don't get overwhelmed when we use technology, and that it serves our purposes. And so that's where the whole durable thing comes in, is that we as human beings have these wonderful attributes like that. They're also coming out these days. That is our compassion, our intuition. We're feeling our way here. And so we need to have a clear mind to move forward and to make good choices. And sometimes when we get sucked into our technology, or it sucks away our attention from people who need us, that's when we have to really, we have to become aware of what we're doing and how we are interacting with these devices.
Yeah, I think that's so true. It's good that for us to think of it as it's not a good or bad thing. It has it's how we use it. We have to sort of be more intentional and in control of kind of this digital world that is so much now a part of what we do. I love your message about durability. It just kind of reminds me of the word resilience. And I feel like during times of stress or challenge that's where we kind of build our resilience or our durability. What are some of your, I'm sure you are talking to a lot of people right now. What are some of your main tips that you're sharing with people just to help them get through this and come out more durable at the end of this pandemic? What are just some of your tips that you have for people?
Yes, and I'm glad you brought up resilience before I give you some tips, because it's different from durability. Resilience has more to do with being knocked down and be able to get up again. But durability is to endure day to day and to actually maybe even grow in strength. And so it's very different from resilience. And being durable is something that you have to work at. You have to work at being physically durable by getting exercise. You have to work at being mentally durable by figuring out when you're getting mentally overheated. And maybe we'll talk about that later in terms of strategies for calming yourself down. And of course, we need to keep our relationships durable. And that's what we're going to talk about most today, I think, is as parents, how to keep our relationships durable with our children. And so rather than just me spouting out my own ideas, I actually have reviewed 13 different experts and what they're saying right now during the pandemic for parents and families to manage at home. And the first thing I would say is for us to have sort of an overview of ourselves as parents, and that would be as rocks and models. Almost every expert agrees that we need to be rocks and models. And what I mean by that is that children, we are their constant in all of this. Their lives have totally been upended, as have ours, except we're the adults in the room. And so we have to be reassuring to them, and we have to be steady, and they have to lean on us. And I always picture us as a giant sequoia. So we're this giant sequoia, and they're like clinging to us. And so we actually have to be there for them and make sure that they know that we're there. And as models, we have to, especially when we're talking about technology, we have to be aware of how we're using our technology so it doesn't get in the way of them. One of the other overarching themes that came from these experts was they need to be seen and heard. They need to be with your face, looking at their face directly. You need to see them and hear them. It's so simple. But when you've got a phone in one hand or you've got one eye on the phone, you're not seeing and hearing them. And so that was an important, very important message from all these people, that the kids need hugs and eye contact in order to be reassured. And so going quickly into the third point, which we can take more time on these, but we need to structure the home so that seeing and hearing is maximized. That means that it's a no-brainer that you'll see and hear your kids. So the advice is that you set up your house so that there are certain areas and times of the day when you're not using, when technology is not present. It's put aside. And that obviously that's, maybe not so obviously, but during meals is a good time for everybody to catch up and see each other. And then bedtimes are very important for that too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Jenifer, going back to your first point, I just want to put in my little 2 cents. I think the rock is it's a good analogy, but I feel like a lot of parents are feeling not very solid, like we're not feeling like the sequoia. We're more like a reed, like whatever. I feel like it's also important for going back to the modeling thing is for us to be real with our kids and say, wow, this is I'm really having a lot of ups and downs during this time. So if you get kind of snappish with your kids or you don't respond the way you want, to really repair it. Dr. Tina Payne Bryson always talks about the importance that we're not perfect, but it's important with our kids that, like you say, we're always there for them. We're steady, we're going to be there, but also that we share with them kind of our own emotions so they see that even the parents are struggling through this time. And so just that, because I think some people will be like, oh no, I'm not feeling like a sequoia right now. I think a lot of parents are feeling really frazzled just from the pressures of everything going on. And I just think that I know with my kids who are a little bit older, it's been really good for us to just be sharing, like we share at dinner, our highs and lows, and just to say, you know what, today was a better day because this and this and this. And today I was just really feeling discouraged or down. And being really open and honest with them that these are very real and normal feelings during this time, to not feel like your best self like every day. But like you said, to be there, that presence piece, oh my gosh, I think that's the gift that all of us need, adults too. We need someone who just looks at us and says, hey, I'm here, I'll give you a hug, all that. So really, really good points about just the presence and especially if we're the only people that they're seeing face to face right now.
Right. Well, that's another point that they made, and I'm so glad that you brought it up, is that we have to know we're not superheroes. We can't be. We can't have our finger on every pulse at every moment, and that we almost have to lower the expectations for ourselves. We're literally not be able to get as much done in a day and that sort of thing. I'm sure we're all discovering that now by this time. And so we have to save our energy almost like for basic needs. And so being able to have the presence of mind to pay attention to them, carve out time is the term that they used during certain times of the day, or schedule it in. So it would be, so a big thing they talked about was having a plan. And so even people working at home, they know that they have to be at work and they know that there are work hours, and that's very challenging. But as they're making their day schedule, to be like, okay, I know I'm going to carve out this hour before bedtime and we're just going to play and be together and read books. So it's almost like putting it on your radar screen to make sure that you have built in kind of a no-brainer to be able to spend time with your kids uninterrupted.
Yes, definitely. Oh, that's so important. I know for me, and I think it really varies. If you have young kids, I don't even honestly, like people right now with young kids at home trying to also work, it's basically impossible. So yes, lower expectations of everything, because like you said, just getting everybody fed, hugging on people, maybe reading a little bit, just, taking care of the basics is pretty much all we can hope for. But for those of us who have older kids who can, do their own school and kind of be doing their own thing, for me, it's really just in our home, it's just the dinner. The dinner has been really fun. The weather has gotten nicer where we are. So we've been having our dinners outside this week. And we found ourselves out there for like an hour and a half. And this is like our time with, without our phones, and nobody's on, meetings or anything. And then we clean up together. And then after that, it's kind of optional, but like a few of us sometimes go for a walk or whatever. But I think even with older kids, like if you have your college kids home or even adult kids, just that dinner, I mean, to me, that's the main, most important thing. If you just can do that one time a day, and maybe it's not dinner for everybody, it could be later in the evening, you meet for a dessert or game or I don't know what, but I'm just finding that ends up being the high point of my day. Just, like it's kind of like the little things. I was sharing in my podcast this week, I shared about how just a simple activity that we can all do right now is just to make a really short list of just the little things in life that bring us some delight. Mm-hmm. Because I think right now we can be so focused on all the things that we're missing and grieving, and it's real grief that these events and, like on my Facebook page, it popped up my son's lacrosse game from last year, and it was his first season playing. And I just saw him with his friends playing, and I just was like, oh, this is sad. They'll never get this back, this like whole season with your friends and this team. And so there's a ton of loss, but at the same time, there's these little things that, they always say, like at the end of our life, the things that you're going to miss most or want most are just the real basic stuff, like having a cup of coffee with your spouse and chatting in the morning, and smiling and talking with your kids, and laughing over a funny joke around dinner. I mean, it's those things that that money can't buy, and you don't necessarily need to leave your house to get. So I think that's another just kind of mind shift thing, that because we're limited now, let's take it as an opportunity to really see and be grateful for those little moments and those little things that we can still do, and that maybe we can come out of this valuing them even more. Maybe we'll end up taking more time to really spend that time with our loved ones and do those little tiny things that we take for granted, that now we realize, let's not take them for granted.
Exactly right. And you mentioned grieving. That some of the, like grieving that you're not playing lacrosse right now. Yeah. Grieving that you can't flirt with that guy that you just were starting up with at lunch, at school. And so that's one thing that the experts are already also saying, is that we need to validate their feelings, which is if they're moping around, rather than giving them a hard time and saying, I understand, I know what you're going through. And they suggest you can say, I'm here. I'm here if you want to just talk. And so just rather than just, passing their feelings off, is to really have compassion for them and understand how devastated they are, and they're literally grieving. And so we're having some rough times in the household. And so we do have to treat each other so gently.
Yeah. I think as parents too, honestly, I feel like even though it's hard for everybody, I feel like it's much harder for younger people to be stuck at home. If you can like channel back and remember when you were in high school or college, your friends and being with your friends, and that was your priority, and rightly so. It's a developmental thing. And so the other thing that I've urged people when I've talked to people is, don't take it personally. When your kids might say things like about how much they do not want to be at home, and that it's not a personal thing. We're still important to them. We're their parents and everything else. But when we were 15, 16, 13, 20, we did not want to be hanging out with our parents 24/7. And I think that that's a really important thing to realize. I think a lot of times parents right now think that, like, oh, my kids are my best friends. I love hanging out with them all the time. And it is great to have a really warm, close relationship with your kids, but it is not the same. We are not the same for them as what their peers and their friends do for them. And I felt really emotional just looking at my high school posted a picture of me with a high school friend at a soccer game, and I got really emotional. And I saw it, and we looked so happy. We were smiling, and I thought, this great memories, and what a reminder that this is harder for our kids, honestly, than it is for us. I know we have a lot of financial stresses and all these like adult kind of things, but for us, like time is actually kind of going quickly for me. Like I'm keeping busy with work, and it's not it's not as hard for me. I don't get to see my friends as often in regular life, but for our kids, they're, like you said, their life has been completely upended, and the things they love most have been taken away, and they've been left with a virtual class, which is really hard to learn. So much. I mean, yeah. So anyway, I just think that compassion piece is really important, because I think I've talked to some other people, and it's like sometimes our kids sound really kind of selfish, and like they'll say things that you're just like, oh my gosh, people are dying. There's this pandemic, and we have food on the table, and we have so much to be grateful for. And it's true, but they are feeling real and necessary, and probably very similar to what, if we were their age, we would be feeling.
Oh yeah, and trapped and everything else. And that compassion, I loved what one of the psychiatrists said. She said, the virus is contagious, but so is compassion. And so if we could, you write about this in your book a lot, about the power of a smile. And I write that a hug is like a muscle relaxant, tranquilizer, and love potion all rolled into one. They're both cheap, and you've got them right at your disposal, and use them, because that's about all that you can give them right now to make their hearts feel, I don't know, happier and less despondent. And so, it's pretty important. However, if they're grouchy, one thing is that we can't let them off the hook in terms of, we all need some routines, even within the chaos. And that, especially today on Digital Wellness Day, thinking about our bodies in relation to our technology, that we need to sleep. That's called a bedrock. It's a foundational thing to our success or durability through this. And that we need to help have some guidelines for people at home, different all the way through the ages of folks living in the house, and that having screen-free bedrooms is a good idea. And I know it's really challenging, but if parents begin to think of it as pro-sleep rather than anti-tech, they actually might be able to talk with their kids about how are you using whatever, which games are you going on, what are you doing, and why do you like it? So if you start a conversation with them, you may be able to get to creating some guidelines around and boundaries around where and when to use technology, and then get toward this new habit of trying to have the bedrooms to be screen-free. And I think that another way to couch it in a positive way is saying the bedroom can be a sanctuary for their souls, that they actually can be in their bedroom and try to process, they'll be thinking, and they can just have time for mental digestion, and then solid sleep when they actually sleep, because they won't be awakened by either temptation or pinging or lights or anything like that. And it gives them more strength for the next day. That's why they call it foundational. So that's one thing that you can throw in, definitely have it in the plan to maybe have the parents to have screen-free bedrooms.
To increase our durability. Yeah, Dr. Christine Carter, in her new book, The New Adolescence, basically it's one of these very fundamental things of the book is that the sleep deprivation is underlying a lot of the, mental health issues that our adolescents are having. And so even just tackling that one piece could really help all of us. I mean, I know as an adult, I feel the difference. Sleep is super important to me, and you don't feel everything doesn't feel good when you're not well rested. So that's a really key point. I know that you've talked about too, just that seeing that light, whatever the light from the screens right before bed isn't healthy. So just, I like to switch to like real books at night, just reading a regular book for my last like half an hour and that kind of thing. So important. I do think there's a technique with teens that I think is really important, motivational interviewing. I'm sure you're familiar with that. I talk about it in my book too. And it's basically when you're talking to someone who's an emerging adult and coming up with their own identity and their own values, it doesn't really work to say, do it this way because that's what you're supposed to do or whatever. It's more, who do you want to be? How is this helpful to you? What are some other ways you could do it? They've got to figure this out for themselves. We're not going to be able to, we need to raise people who are able to make good decisions and promote their own good habits. So as they get older, and especially if you're coming out from under like not having any guidelines, I think it's important to just have that chat and say, hey, I want to talk to you about this. What are your thoughts? What do you really like about having your phone by you all time? And then what are some downsides of that? And what might it be like if you try something different? So I think that, you don't want to get into these huge battles at this point or try to upheave things, but I think we have some more time for conversation about these topics.
Exactly. And you spent a lot of time in your book talking about having them build life skills, self-reliance skills, and that there's a whole list at the back of your book, which I really love, of different things that kids really should know how to do when they leave the house, go to college or get a job. And they include things like cooking and doing the laundry and writing a check and all that stuff. Do you think that people have the presence of mind enough to be able to help their kids maybe master one of those two? That's an opportunity right now to kind of have them do more for themselves and learn these things.
Oh, I think this is a golden opportunity for us in many ways. First of all, if you're an adult parent trying to work from home and manage things, you need more help from your kids. I mean, the kids really, in order for your little microcosm of your home to function well, everybody needs to be pitching in. I don't know if you're fortunate enough to have like a housekeeper who comes every couple weeks, they're not coming anymore. And so even just the basic, like keeping your home clean and organized, it needs to be a teamwork kind of thing. So I do think this is a really good opportunity. What we've done, as I said, my kids are older. My youngest, who's at home, is 16. And so we just we pick a menu for the week. And usually my husband has been doing the shopping because he also has to get stuff for his parents. Everyone's doing a dinner once a week. And that's just like one of those things that it's fun. They can learn new things. Sometimes we've done the apprenticeship model, like my 19-year-old learned from my husband how to make meatballs this week. So it doesn't have to be this super stringent thing, like you need to make the whole dinner by yourself, but it's a really great opportunity to say, this is what we're doing. We're all going to help each other out because we need to during this time. And I think that the other thing then that just reminded me when you said that is I am much more about being pro, like let's do this as opposed to let's not do this. So perhaps, it's instead of let's put down our phones, it's, hey, let's cook dinner together. So it's like, hey, let's go outside and play basketball in the driveway. Let's, do this game together. So it's promoting things that are appealing and kind of fun and learning as opposed to taking stuff away. I'm tired of our messaging to kids being, don't do this, don't bully. That's one of the anti-bullying thing. That's one of my, I know absolutely, it's very important that we don't allow kids to bully each other. However, the message of pro-kindness and reaching out and having compassion for others is far more powerful in a way that we can appeal to their identity as a person and say, you know what, you are a kind person. And you may not realize that what your words just made me feel, but I know you're a kind person. So I think, again, like you said, we can say to our kids, we have been so busy and life has been so crazy that I haven't had time to like show you how to work the laundry machine or make this favorite dinner. And you love this roast that we eat, so let's learn how to make it. I did that with my 16-year-old. I just asked him, when this started, I said, okay, so this is, you're going to learn to make some new things. What are your favorite dinners? So you don't make it like a punitive thing. It's more like, hey, and then it's kind of cool. Someday you can make this for your friends when you're back together. You can have this thing. Another of my sons hadn't learned how to barbecue yet. So that's been part of this thing. So it's just that little stuff. It doesn't have to be, and I know that I have that checklist, which is kind of cool. And that was more meant not so much for the parents, but for the kids themselves, because I want them to be autonomous and take ownership of it and just say, hey, yeah, I do want to learn these things. I want to be a competent adult who knows how to do stuff. And then they should be asking you almost. Like, hey, you know what, Mom, or Dad, I want to learn how to change a tire. Can you show me? Or, so thanks for bringing that up, because I do think, I think we should view this as a kind of a fun thing and say to them, ask them, hey, what do you want to learn how to cook?
Yeah. Yes, I loved it when my son texted me last week, Mom, how was that? How to do eggplant parmesan again? And it was he was really excited to do it. And those years that he would stand next to me and we would be doing, cooking together was really was wonderful to see it really happening. And you reminded me of something when I thought this is the coolest idea. Now, I know this is kind of a big one, but the idea of kind of extending from being on, doing something on technology. So it was talk to people in your family on FaceTime and get a recipe from each one. And then you make them, and then you can make a family cookbook and publish it. So that's for a really ambitious family who wants to do something like that. And then this other expert, Nancy Carlson Page, said extend, if they are going to be doing something online, even little ones, if they watch a half an hour of Daniel Tiger or something, then give them a plastic tiger. So it's kind of like transferring the time that they were loving online and everything, and then letting them just extrapolate in the real world. So we do have to be creative, and that's why we can't be ground into the ground and not durable, because we don't have presence of mind to be a little bit creative and a little bit, just to make it fun. Because once you get them going, their imaginations do take off. But you might have to provide the little stuffed tiger or the little, or have them draw one. So it's just sort of extending the time online, because little kids especially. I wanted to point out the difference between if little ones are watching a video, like a story, not a story, but more like a YouTube or a game or something like that. It might have to do with numbers even. And they might be able to pick out a 2, even maybe a 2-year-old can pick a 2 out of a line of numbers. And then that's very exciting. But the research is showing they don't know how many 2 is. They don't know how many 2 blocks is. And that's why they must have 2 real life blocks to be able to figure out how do they feel, how do they taste. Those kids, little ones like that, they really need to be in the 3D world using all their senses. So any number of video games or little YouTube cute things are not going to substitute for this, or for you looking in their eyes, and well, actually them looking in your eyes. They're actually learning how to speak by looking at your face. And so we parents have to really, really value the time they need with the real world, with all their senses. So I'm just bringing that up because we can, again, we can kind of forget them off in the corner because they could be happy with an iPad or something like that. But we have to understand what they really need, and they need to have a lot of face-to-face time with us and interaction they really benefit from our sitting and reading books with them. And so I know it's a challenge, but it's something to keep in mind as we're trying to manage everything at home.
I will say it's funny. This reminded me. So Allison, somebody I had on like a month ago, she has 2 little girls, 4 and 7. Mm-hmm. And she's very creative. She's a camp director and she's a former teacher, but she has found quite a few ways to keep kids busy offline without needing your direct supervision. And one that I just love, and I posted a picture of this on my Instagram. She has these little like clothespins that have letters on them. So like A through Z. And so she sent her 4-year-old through the house trying to put a clothespin on things that start with a letter. So when you think about like taking offline, like maybe you watch a Sesame Street or something that's like with letters or words, but and then it took a long time, which is great. And it was independent play. So it's like she's not online, but she's going around doing this. And then it was a fun family connection activity for her to take a tour with her parents and her 7-year-old sister and show them what she found. And then the 7-year-old was helping her like, oh, actually that starts with a G, not a J. It was just, and I just was like, that's so clever because I think that parents are pretty desperate for some independent play and their kids doing things that I think a lot of parents, especially those who work full time, are not used to having that kind of relationship with their kids. They're used to being at work, their kid being at school or daycare, and then coming together and having this very intense playing together time. And so it's more like palatable to think about, oh yeah, if we're just together in the evening, we'll have dinner together, we'll do bath, we'll read together, I'll put them to bed, and then I have a little bit of time. But when the kids are there all day, you really do need to strategize some ways to get them and encourage them to play either on their own or with their siblings without needing you there all the time. So these fun kind of crazy like scavenger hunts, nature scavenger hunts. If you have a backyard, find a green leaf, find a what. I mean, just there are a lot of really clever activities that are being shared that I encourage people to look into. I have quite a few on my website from my chat with Allison, and I've also had some really fun chats with some other camp directors because summer camps are completely unplugged. So we spend our entire time with the kids. And of course, it's a lot easier for us because we don't have school or our work is playing with the kids, but the kids are 100% fine, very happy without their devices. And they're doing a lot of fun, hands-on, together with real people stuff. So I think there's a lot that parents can learn from that, that it can be some stuff that you just kind of send your kids off on a little adventure and then you check in with them, if they're old enough to do stuff safely, obviously.
Right. Well, they can even have an adventure in the sink. Sorry, like fill it up with water, give them colanders and give them funnels and things like that. And then they'll have fun there. They're not going to turn around on their shoulder, look at you and be like, "Mommy." I mean, they'll get caught up in it. Have some bubbles in there. It could be really awesome. So we forget, or the psychiatrists call it, we get into loops that we can't get outside the loop, but we have to get out into Play-Doh, bubbles, water, dirt, beans on like a cookie tin, a cookie sheet, put beans on there and they can draw there and do stuff like that. So, and then all those wonderful ideas you have on your site. So it's just a matter of almost reminding, but you know what? A lot of that stuff's in the cupboard, there's things that we could do. I mean, I'm not a big proponent of finger painting with ketchup and mustard. I still can't quite get there, but if you can get there, go ahead, do it. Because that's a lot of fun for them if you have a bathtub nearby afterwards.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. Do you have a list of those things like the beans like that? That just gave me this vision. Yeah. That tactile stuff. I remember, I know sandboxes are kind of out because of cat poo now, but I don't know, like when I was a kid, that was what we did. But now those water tables, you could just make your own, just, you have a bucket and your, cups. But my kids, I just remember when my kids were little, and especially when I had several of them who were little, bath time was great because I could just be sitting there. They'd all be, their cups, and there would be two of them in the bathtub, and they could keep themselves really busy having fun. And there's so much now. I remember we even had those, there were crayons that worked in the bathtub, and there's all these, there's toys. We had a huge bucket of toys. And so that's a great idea. And it is kind of they will play. You have to supervise, but they're independently having fun, and tactile and all that. And rice, I remember being something too, putting rice in a bowl. Dough, if you let your kids hang out with you while you're cooking, actually my older son making meatballs, he didn't realize that you use your hands, so of course we washed up and stuff, but I was isn't it kind of cool, all that food, stuff, if you don't mind your cookies not being perfect, let your kid do, so, but yeah, Play-Doh and we used to make our own Play-Doh. Now this is all coming back to me. The kids loved the actual stirring and making of real Play-Doh. So even if you can't get to the store to get it, I'll have to find our recipe that we used to use, and I'll share that too. But this has been a really good reminder for me. And I have to say that even as adults, Play-Doh is good.
Right. I have some in my office that I pull out on a regular basis. But yeah, Play-Doh is great, especially since you can make it yourself a little. Some of it you might not even need cream of tartar. I know that's the limiting factor with Play-Doh, but there are a bunch of recipes out there available right online. So yeah.
Well, if you have a favorite, share it with me, Jenifer, because I'll share it with the community, because that is, honestly, that could be the lifesaver for many families, just making some Play-Doh, and then all of us parents can use it as a stress ball. The kids can be playing. You can have it. You can make it all different colors. I think kids would really get it. My kids loved making Play-Doh when they were little.
Yeah, and there's a lot you could do. Then you give them plastic knives, and they can cut. And a little bit of risk. If you give them a plastic knife, then they learn how to use knives. It's good for them to, and plus it uses their small motor muscles. And the problem with, you probably know this, because so many kids are overdoing it on tablets at a young age, they can't grip. They're having a really hard time gripping. And so I think your guest had this really cool idea, which was to take, and this is another extension off of using the TV or something like that and putting it into some other format, some other media. They took a Harry Potter saying and they wrote it out in cursive or printing, and then the kid followed it with a highlighter. And so that took time. It got the child to be able to use their small motor skills and gripping. And I know I've heard of kids that go to preschool and they can't grip anything. So they're having them go around on these small little shopping carts to try to get their hands to grip. And so that's a thing that when they grow up and they go to medical school, they want to be a surgeon, they have to be able to handle a needle. So this is another reason to give them Play-Doh instead of a screen so they can really do that. Plus they can be creative.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I get frustrated sometimes that we get sucked into other people's creations. Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak were brilliant and they came up with this great thing. That's their creation. But if we're always on that all the time, we're not creating anything. And so that's another thing as a parent, we have to have this overview of giving our children some time to be bored and not be constantly entertained so they actually start to think for themselves.
Oh my gosh, I'm super inspired. And you just reminded me when I was little, one of my favorite activities, I vividly remember this, was my mom would write letters and I had a clipboard and then we had tracing paper. And she would put the tracing paper. So I was thinking you could do that with like quotes or words or even drawings. Like if you know how to, like I don't have a lot of skills, but like I can draw this one dog, for example. So I could draw the dog underneath and they could trace over with the tracing paper. And I just remember like I would ask my mom, can we do another one? Can you make me another? And you can reuse the thing. So if you make one, you can put different tracing paper over it and do it multiple times. So gosh, I'm just inspired by all your ideas, Jenifer, so many good things. And yes, and I think for us as well, I honestly feel like during this time, I've enjoyed doing more tactile things. I've been doing puzzles and I've gotten my sewing machine back out and like everyone else trying to make masks and doing things with our hands is to me, it's kind of a good relaxing thing too.
Yes. Well, so many people are into making bread, including my husband, which I was very, very happy when he actually started doing that.
Is he doing the sourdough or is he doing just regular bread?
Darn it. I can't figure out to do the sourdough. My son's in San Francisco. I don't think we can make that happen that way. And I know everybody else out there is like, no, you can make sourdough really easily. No, he got this old Betty Crocker cookbook and he made white bread. It was.
Oh, isn't that wonderful? I actually delved into the sourdough world last weekend and it's provided a lot of entertainment for my family because there was like a limit of flour. So the first loaf I made was pretty good. It was pretty dense, but it was nice. But all I had was wheat flour and I ended up with this loaf that's like this big and weighs like 10 pounds. It's like a rock. It's so dense. So we've gotten some good laughs about my very dense like wheat, but I'm going to try again. I have my little starter now in the fridge, but yeah, it's funny that we're all drawn, like a lot of people are baking bread and doing these things. And it's interesting that we are being drawn to these things that make us more durable, right?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think that's really. And so again, I'm just really trying to stay positive during this time and thinking that, you know what, it's difficult. And let's think of the opportunities that we might have here to, do things with our hands, perhaps like pursue that hobby that we have been wanting to do for a long time. Like I mean, everyone says they want to bake bread, or a lot of people do. And then now people are actually doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's so good. Well, Jenifer, any other like thoughts or encouragement that you have for people just about, just kind of some final thoughts about how we can just be those durable people and help our kids become durable humans?
Oh, well, thanks. I was thinking about ourselves in order to support them. And that I just recorded a video yesterday on this breathing technique to get yourself to calm down. I think things might get even more confusing than they are now. And so we need to we have to be like checking in with ourselves about, are we getting upset And is there a way that I can back out of this and not be so upset? And I think that using techniques such as deep breathing, removing yourself from the situation, placing your hands on a hard surface, if that's the least you can do, close your eyes and take some deep breaths just to get yourself pulled back together, because there are going to be challenges and we need to have quick strategies to figure out a way. Wait a minute, I'm flying off the handle. I don't want to, I'm not going to, and walk away, because they're frazzled too. Yelling does not, that's also contagious, but not in a good way, in a very bad way. And so I guess I'm saying is just, cut yourself a break, understand that, you are going to get hot under the collar at times. I would suggest if there are some real problems that do have what you also suggest is a family meeting, pull people together, have an agenda you might even post on the fridge, talk about issues, as you say. The issue is all the shoes in the kitchen and what can be done about them. Or, the issue is there's too much work to be done. We need to split it up. So have those family meetings, calm yourself down before the meeting, of course. So it's just those ways to sort of get things quickly in control that I think will be really, really helpful.
Oh, well, I already feel more in control just talking to you. So thank you. You made me feel, I was thinking when you were talking about your hands flat on the table, I was thinking to your feet flat on the ground is also very grounding. I know that, in any, like if you do the Calm app or any of those things, they always say, sit like upright with your feet grounded, but now that hand thing actually sounds really good too. And, I've never been a good breather. And so it's been something that I had it as my word of the year a few years ago. And I did the Calm app I've really been working at that because I'm more of a fast pace, like I like to run and, that's kind of my steady breathing, but it feels great if you can just, even if it's just 1 minute, of just really getting it deep into your belly and then, exhaling. So I do love that. And what a great example we can set if we can manage to just take even 1 or 2 deep breaths before we respond. I think we're all very much used to this reaction mode and we're so busy and we're do this, do that. Oh my gosh, we got to go. Oh, hurry, we're late. And so to be able to switch into this mode of a deep breath and responding more the way we want to could be that way to be the rock and be the model, both, right, for our kids.
Yep.
Well, this has been great. Jenifer, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you so much for introducing me to Digital Wellness Day. I'm excited to dive into some of the other offerings that are going on. Are you participating in any other things today, or what else is coming up?
Well, thanks for asking. Yes, at 5:00 on Unplugged Family is Madeline Mangrum is the host. She's having people all day on her show, on her Facebook page. And so I'm going to be with her at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 2:30 p.m. Pacific Time. And we're going to chat a little bit about, these same subjects, and looking forward to talking to her. And
well, let me know the link for that. Is it on her page? Maybe just send me a message and I'll put it as a link so that people can check that out as well. Because I think that we all need all the help we can get right now, right?
Absolutely. Just scraps here, scraps there. You can put together your best plan, and it doesn't have to be a big plan. just a couple basics that you want to sort of keep things in somewhat order. And I know it's possible for you to be durable and keep that compassion and that intuition and creativity up front.
Oh, thank you so much, Jenifer. This has been just a pleasure.
Same here. Thank you for the invite.
Thanks so much for listening to my chat with Jenifer Joy Madden about digital wellness. My favorite for this week is an app and website that probably many of you already use. It's Goodreads. It's like a social networking app for readers. I really enjoy reading, and reading is one of the things that I find good for my wellness, and I bet some of you enjoy reading as well. So check out Goodreads if you're not already on there. Find out what friends of yours are on there, see what they're reading, share reviews, and let's read some great books this summer. As always, you can find notes, links, and other resources related to today's conversation by visiting my website at sunshine-parenting.com. While you're there, be sure to sign up for my email list so that you don't miss out on any of the great resources I have available for raising thriving kids. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd really appreciate you sharing it with a friend. Please take a moment to give Sunshine Parenting a rating or review on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. Let's end with a quote from my book, Happy Campers. Regardless of your child's age, remember that their best practice ground for positive relationships starts with you at home. Siblings, cousins, and close family friends are our kids' first friends, and by coaching our kids through the ups and downs of those relationships, we are helping them gain important social skills that will benefit them throughout their lives. Seeing ourselves as our kids' friendship coaches reminds us that our most important job as parents is modeling and teaching our kids about how to form positive relationships. It is from parents that our children first learn how to connect with others. I'm Audrey Monkey. Thank you for joining me for the Sunshine Parenting Podcast. Join me again next week for more conversations about raising kids who become thriving adults.